Yeah.
That's too bad.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name's Brian Meyer. I'm a state representative from southeast side of Des Moines. And last year I introduced House File 65, which we know as Death with Dignity, based on the Oregon law. And the origins of this bill, I have a very personal bent on me, which is that in 2011, I received a phone call in March from my mother in Dubuque who said that she had just been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. Never smoked a cigarette in her life. She calls me and says, they gave me 3 to 4 months to live. Obviously, I was shocked. Okay? She lasted a month. And those last, when you get the call that says it's time to come up, she doesn't have much time left. And it got me thinking on the trip to Dubuque, you know, as things are racing through your brain, your memories, the history you've had, and you get up there and you see your mother who looks like a shell of a person that is not the same person I saw a month before that and had just given up. And she had last, like I said, a month, but as I watched those last 3 to 4 days of her struggle, even though we've never discussed this, I know what her views would have been on this. And it got me thinking over the next couple of months after that, next couple of years after that, everything went back to those 3 or 4 days where she just struggled. And I know if she had had an opportunity and was given the opportunity to die peacefully in a way that she chose, that she would have certainly probably taken that step. And so I started thinking about how can, you know, we make this something that can be realistic in Iowa. And then I started looking for what other states had done and found Oregon. And then in the news a couple years ago with the young woman that moved, I believe, from California to Oregon. And I think it's becoming, I have had more response from more people about this particular piece of legislation than anything that I've done up here. And everybody that has ever contacted me has said, thank you. And that's all they've ever said. You don't need to say anything else. Thank you. Because we need to start the conversation about this, and we need to take action. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Meyer. It's good to be here with you. Thanks for sharing that story, and thanks for your leadership last year in introducing House File 65, which really has kind of gotten us to the point we are here today. I'd like to recognize a couple of my colleagues in the Senate. I'm Joe Bolkcom. I live in Iowa City. I represent Iowa City in the Iowa Senate. I'm joined by a couple of our other leaders on this issue as well. Senator Matt McCoy from Des Moines, represents Des Moines and West Des Moines, and Senator Rich Taylor from Mount Pleasant represents a couple counties down in southeast Iowa. They're both co-sponsors of the legislation in the Senate, Senate File 2051, and we're pleased to have them here and their support. They're going to be a great help to us as we try and push this along. The subject of this legislation is a topic most of us would rather not think or talk about. The topic of dying, and more precisely, our own mortality, makes most of us uncomfortable. Unfortunately, this does not change the fact that the vast majority of us will face difficult, sad, and heart-wrenching decisions about how and when we die. The Iowa Death with Dignity Act recognizes these difficult choices. It respects individual autonomy and could help relieve suffering for many terminally ill Iowans. This legislation supports patient-centered care that is driven by the dying individual, not the family, not the doctor, hospital, or insurer. Aid in Dying emphasizes autonomy and personal choice. It supports the right to make healthcare decisions in accordance with one's personal values, beliefs, and wishes. And this is where you should have your papers more organized. Medical aid in dying is an accepted practice with clear standards and safeguards in 5 states. Oregon was the first state to allow its terminally ill citizens to make end-of-life decisions more than 17 years ago. This system has worked well and without controversy. Senate File 2051 is modeled after the successful Oregon example. The Iowa Death with Dignity Act will continue the conversation on this important issue, encourage Iowans to learn more, ask questions, and share their views. We are especially happy to be joined today by 4 of our fellow citizens who are here today to share their stories about the importance and the need for this legislation. I'd like to introduce Chris Hanson. Chris is a nurse and a hospice volunteer with stage 4 metastatic melanoma. Chris.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Christine Hanson, and I'm here to talk to you about the bill to support death with dignity. How one faces death should be a personal choice. As a nurse of 38 years and now a hospice volunteer, I've seen the agony cancer can cause at the end of life. In America, we have the privilege of choosing our medical treatment and decide when we have had enough. Medical professionals are duty-bound to protect and advocate for the lives that are entrusted in their care. Medical aid in dying should not be withheld from individuals who want to go with dignity. We deserve the right to make our own decisions. I have stage 4 metastatic melanoma. 3 years ago, a doctor told me to get my life in order, that I would probably have less than 6 months to live. And my head was swarming with worst case scenarios. I didn't want to suffer, and I didn't want my family to see me suffer. After multiple surgeries, radiation, and a failed drug trial, I'm still enjoying life, but I know that that can change at any moment. Every 3 months, I go to the University of Iowa for a scan and oncology check and a full body dermatology check. Statistically, my life expectancy for living 5 years was less than 14%. I'm still here 3 years. If the tumor does return, it would more than likely metastasize to my brain, my lungs, or my bones. I don't want to suffer a slow and painful death. I want this bill to be passed before it is my time. My family and friends want this bill to be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. We'll hear next from Wendy Smith from Ottumwa. Christine was from Cedar Rapids, by the way. Wendy is a nurse and former home health care director for Washington State.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Smith. I'm a director for home care in Ottumwa, Iowa, but formerly worked as the director for home health and hospice in the state of Washington, where I had the privilege of caring for many patients at end of life, including some who utilize Washington's death with dignity law. Witnessing their end of life journey has motivated me to advocate for a similar law in Iowa. Dying patients should have the freedom to make decisions from a full range of end-of-life options, including aid in dying, no matter where they live. My own journey with end-of-life care began with, "Hello, my name is Wendy, and I'm your hospice nurse." I have been at the bedside with patients who exercise their options for end-of-life care and those who were denied that option. No end-of-life journey is the same. I have witnessed patients cry out for the relief of death while others slipped away quietly. I have experienced husbands, wives, children pleading with their physicians to ease the suffering of their loved one, and watched as those same physicians were limited to manage only the pain of suffering. Each day I carry with me the faces of courageous individuals who, in face of death, chose their own journey. Through Death with Dignity, they were able to write their own ending to a life well lived. Fear was replaced with empowerment. In a perfect world, there would be no death or suffering, but we do not live in a perfect world. Each day, thousands are faced with end-of-life decisions. As someone who has comforted the dying, I support Senator Bolkcom's Death with Dignity Act. Modeled after the successful laws in Oregon and Washington, it will bring relief to terminally ill individuals of sound mind, knowing they can make the decision to end their suffering should it become unbearable. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Our next presenter is John Tapscott from Indianola. John is a former Iowa lawmaker who spent a lot of time in this building, he has, with terminal cardiac amyloidosis. John.
Thank you, Joe. First of all, because of my condition, my breathing is becoming a little more labored. I asked my wife to put down what notes that she might come and read if I were not able to do it, but thank goodness I am able to be here today. My name is John Tapscott, and I'm 86 years of age. I'm a lifelong Iowan. Today, I'm here to support the proposed death and dying bill. House File 65, Senate File 2051. Excuse me once in a while when I catch my breath, I hope. Okay. This law would allow mentally competent, terminally ill adult Iowans to request and receive medication so they can die in peaceful, humane manner in a place and the time of their choosing. Death with dignity is just one of the many end-of-care options. I support death with dignity option for Iowans because I believe it is a basic human right to choose not only how we live, but also how we die. We Iowans have a right and a long-standing tradition of upholding human rights, of protecting the constitutional rights of individuals, even when those rights are not widely accepted or when they challenge a deeply ingrained practice or belief. I have supported Death with Dignity movement for over 40 years. I served in the Iowa legislature, both the House and Senate, in the 60s and 70s. During the late 60s, a small group of legislators and I attempted to amend a bill addressing death with dignity. Needless to say, we were called not only out of order, non-germane, but we were defeated, and because it was a new concept over 40 years ago. Today, 7 out of 10 Americans support end-of-life options. Yet this is the only option available to Americans living in Oregon, Washington, Vermont, Montana, and California, and hopefully Iowa. Yet there are 20 states who have legislation pending. Now this becomes even more personal for me. Approximately 1 year ago, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, cardiac amyloidosis, a somewhat rare condition that is caused by protein deposits stiffening my heart muscles. My heart cannot pump adequately and my organs are affected. At that time, I gave up driving. I have difficulty walking, breathing, and swallowing. And as my hospice care tells me, it will get me more pronounced. I've lost 60 pounds. I'm on oxygen 24/7. I cannot bathe or dress myself. I've only left my home a few times since last July. At that time, I underwent hospice care with Hospice of Central Iowa with the hope that I can peacefully die at home, surrounded by my loved ones. This last year has helped me gain even a better understanding of the importance of having end-of-life choices. At this stage, I know there are things worse than death, such as the possibility of being totally incapacitated. I have no fear of death. My biggest disappointment, of course, is leaving my loved ones. I've seen what it takes for a caregiver by my wonderful wife behind me, who is constantly by my side 24/7 with the support of my children and my grandchildren. my sister, and some wonderful friends. Watching my health, independence, and dignity slip away one day at a time has taken its toll on me, but I'm still able to make rational and logical decisions. If this bill would become law, it is too late in my terminal illness for me to use, if I were so inclined. However, I hope that my end-of-life experiences might help others have this additional option. I commend the sponsors of both the House file and the Senate file in the manner in which they have allowed for an open discussion on death and dying and have protected against euthanasia. I believe in every American's right to live within the laws of this nation as they see fit. I also believe we have the right, as long as mentally capable, to choose the way we die. I'm not supporting this bill with the belief that I might or might not use this method, but I believe it should be an option open to any terminally ill person. Thank you for giving the time and attention to this most important piece of legislation. And I, again, commend the sponsors of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for your really continued service to the people of our state. Our next presenter will be Jennifer Holm. Jennifer is with the Iowa Carcinoid Cancer Connection.
Kind of close. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Holm. I am the president of the Iowa Carcinoid / Neuroendocrine Cancer Connection. It's a statewide group, and we work with a national nonprofit. Carcinoid cancer is a type of neuroendocrine cancer, which is similar to what Steve Jobs had. His was found in the pancreas. Mine was found in the small intestine. Back in January of 2010, at 39 years old, I was a program manager at Iowa State University. I thought I had either gallstones or an ulcer, and so I started going to the doctor. And within a month, we found carcinoid cancer, and it was already metastasized and was at stage 4. Within a couple years, in 2012, they happened to come across sarcoidosis. It took a few biopsies to find the diagnosis, and sarcoidosis is an autoimmune disease that eats away at everything it touches. It's typically a lung disease, but mine had gone rogue, and there are a few patients out there who have had this happen. By the time they found it, it was in my lungs, my liver, my spleen, most of the vertebrae in my spine, my pelvic bone, my right shoulder blade, and most of the lymph nodes through my neck and down into my lower torso. We did find a chemo combination. I tried several different treatments. They didn't work. I'm on 3 types of chemo for all of this. So basically, I have 2 terminal illnesses, both life-threatening. Both were in remission until about a week ago when they found a new spot on my liver. I have been going through this for about 6 years now, and in this time I have been with several patients who have this cancer and other types of cancer and have been at their bedside while this is happening. With the type of cancer that I have, as well as colon cancers, it's not just about pain. Pain can be managed, pain can be controlled. With this type of cancer and with other types of cancers, there are additional health problems that come into play. With this particular type of cancer and with colon cancer, the cancer will actually eat away at the organs, including the skin in the abdomen, and bowel has been known to ooze out of those sores. So yes, there are drugs to eliminate the pain. I've been so drugged up at points where I don't know who I am, what planet I'm on. I think my cat is doing jumping jacks in the corner and I'm laughing at something that's an illusion. I don't know who's by my bedside. I don't know who's come to visit me. And that's not a way to live. It's simply an existence. So I don't want to merely exist. I don't want my family to see me like that. I don't want my son to see me like that. I don't want them to be waiting around for days, weeks, months, seeing me living, existing like that, not knowing if they're there and not there, not being able to hold a conversation without falling asleep. So I want my close family to be with me while I still have a quality of life. And when I want to say goodbye and remember me and not remember me as a tortured former shell of myself. I know not everybody feels this way, but I believe everybody should be able to decide for themselves. And when they're capable of making this decision of how they choose to end their life and how they choose to have their family see them when that time comes. There is no cure for what I have for either the carcinoid cancer or for the sarcoidosis. I do not qualify for any clinical trials, but I am at peace with the fact that I'm dying. And I've had people say, well, you're just giving up. Coming to peace, coming to accept what's happening to me and being okay with that. That's acceptance. And that's, if you see the 5 steps of grieving, acceptance is the final stage. And I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with what's happening to me. I have everything planned out. I have all my ducks in a row. But when I am no longer able to care for myself, when I'm sleeping all the time, when I have no idea who's by my side and who's not, and my quality of life is poor, my body is shutting down, I don't want to drag out the inevitable for weeks or months and have my family's bills piling up, wishing that it would end quickly and soon for me because I'm being tortured. Accepting my own mortality is not giving up. Being at peace and accepting death is not the opposite of life, but a part of life. Thank you for your support. Please support the Iowa Death with Dignity Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for sharing that. I want to really thank all our presenters for the courage to be here today, to share really personal details of their lives. It's a really hard thing to do. And I think at the end of the day, the stories that we've heard here today and the other stories, I'm sure that if we went around the room, those stories are going to make the difference here. Legislators want to do what's right, and powerful stories help them do that. Before I open up for questions, I want to re-thank Representative Brian Meyer for his leadership, and really a year ago he brought this to the Iowa legislature, and again Senator McCoy and Senator Taylor. This is an issue that has some controversy to it, and not every legislator is ready to sign up, and it took some leadership for them to come forward to do that, and I appreciate that. I'd like to go ahead now and open it up for any questions from our members of the press that are here that have questions about the legislation. Go ahead. Well, Representative Meyer might be better. I mean, there was a bill introduced. In the Senate, the bill got introduced yesterday, got a bill number. I haven't looked on the system. People that come here to lobby sign up if they're for the bill, against the bill, or undecided on the bill, and I haven't looked at it. Representative Meyer may have a better sense in terms of what he faced last year on that.
Well, I was surprised at the resistance, and for this reason only, nobody talked to me. I found out by reading lobbyist reports who was for it and who was against it, and for obvious reasons, a lot of religious groups were against it, but nobody has ever come talk to me about it. And found out after I spoken to last year at a reporter for the Omaha World Herald called and told me where I could find online how a group of conservatives have been trashing me and totally misrepresented the bill as assisted suicide and Jack Kevorkian and stuff. So that's how I found out about opposition. No one has ever talked to me about opposition, but it's always been very passive aggressive.
I do know, I have chatted with the Iowa Medical Society folks here, and they are currently undecided on the bill. They're trying to figure out what their position might be.
I'd like to address 40 years ago. What was amazing was that the number of church leaders who came down on us for playing God was one of the main reasons that people said they opposed it. This is not playing God, ladies and gentlemen. This is playing fair. This is playing fair because people should have the right to live the way they choose to live as long as they live under the accordance of our law, but they should also have the right to die if that be their choice. And that's all we're saying in this, they're saying in this bill is an option. It's purely an option. And Iowa has been known for giving options over the years far ahead of any other state.
Other questions from the media?
Can you talk about some of the specifics that are in the bill as far
Yeah.
as the circumstances that it makes?
Sure, let me check off, just kind of go through a checklist of things that the bill does. It's structured after the Oregon law, as I mentioned earlier, which has been in place 17 years. So in order to qualify you have to be an adult. You have to have a terminal illness, prognosis of 6 months or less to live. You have to be mentally capable, and you have to be able to self-administer medication by mouth. Okay, so those are some criteria. No surrogate, guardian, or healthcare agent may act on behalf of you. The request for aid in dying must be made twice in writing and signed in the presence of witnesses. And then 2 doctors must evaluate and concur that a patient qualifies. And we've heard in talking to some of the medical people, there's no requirement that a doctor or health institution, there's no requirement that they participate. And then there are liability protections in the bill for healthcare professionals. If a protocol is followed, liability protection is given for physicians and other healthcare professionals. The issue of assisted suicide has come up in the past. This is not assisted suicide. Individuals who request aid in dying are not suicidal. They are dying and they want to live, but the diseases that they have are going to kill them. Death with dignity provides them an option to end suffering should the suffering become unbearable. I think the stories we heard today, I think, are pretty good evidence that people do want to have a voice in these end-of-life decisions.
So if the bill were to pass, what would happen to those patients who didn't have the ability to live and to not take this?
Do you want to try that? Did you hear the question?
They have to be able to pick up the medication and swallow that medication. No one else can do it for them.
Other questions from the press? If not, let's again thank you all for being here, especially our presenters for your courage and leadership on this. Also to Compassion in Choices Iowa, thank you for being here today. We're in session all day. I hope that you'll have time this afternoon to get out in the lobby and talk to your legislators about this. It's really important. The people that get elected to these jobs like to do what people back at home want us to do. It's a big deal when people make the effort to come to the Capitol to tell us that, so that's good. But your advocacy is going to make all the difference in the success of moving this forward. In the Senate, we hope in the next week or so to have a subcommittee meeting on the bill. Senator Taylor and I are on that subcommittee in the Senate. It's a Human Resource Committee bill, and it'll be the next opportunity for anybody to come and tell legislators at that subcommittee meeting why this is an important bill and why we should move ahead on it. And it's also the time for people that have concerns about the bill to come and tell us that as well. So we'll get that word out and make sure that as many people as possible know about it, and thinking about scheduling it maybe a week or so in advance actually to give people due notice. So thanks so much for being here, and have a good afternoon.